What is going on, guys? It is a Mythical Island release day, and I want to do a full set review on the Mythical Island set. We got a lot of very exciting, some ridiculously powerful cards that are seriously going to shake up how we play Pokemon Pocket and the meta as a whole. So we're just going to go through. I'm going to point out all the interesting cards in here. We're just going to go in set order. I just got done opening probably 130 packs to get basically everything in the set besides, you know, some full arts and interactive arts or whatever those are called. But we have all of the main cards, so we can go through and we can talk about them and talk about how good I think they're going to be. If you guys are enjoying the content, please be sure to subscribe. I think I have about 25,000 of you that are recurring viewers. You come back to the channel almost every day. If that sounds like you and you haven't subbed, please consider doing so. I would really appreciate it. So let's start first with this Exeggutor. Now, this Exeggutor is honestly decent. It's okay. It does has its psychic attack, 80 damage for 4 energy, 1 grass, 3 colorless, whatever. And it does 20 more damage for each energy attached to your opponent's active Pokemon. Very similar to how Alakazam works. Has 130 HP, 3 retreat cost. This gets a lot better with another card we're going to talk about in a second. Lets you power this Exeggutor up much faster. But this psychic attack does hit for some very good numbers. And also you have the Execute, if I can get to it. The Execute to help start powering it up early on. So let's talk about the numbers, right? If you're going against a Pikachu, Psychic's going to one-shot it. Psychic's going to do 120 damage. If you're going against an Articuno, Psychic's going to do 140 damage. It's going to one-shot it. If you're going against a Charizard, you're not quite going to get there. If you're going against a Mewtwo, unless it's fully powered up, you're not quite going to get there. And you're almost never going to run into a Mewtwo with 4 energy on it. They're going to discard some from their attack, so not really going to work there. But a lot of the Pokemon, you're going to be hitting for one-shot or just close enough to a one-shot that you might be able to just Giovanni around it and take the knockout that way. So for a one-prize attacker, this Exeggutor is pretty decent. I don't think it's anything crazy. I don't really know how it's going to function. I don't think it can be its own deck like Alakazam was. Because, again, Alakazam just hit the numbers a little bit better with its psychic attack. But still, very interesting. I like it a lot. Now we'll talk about the Celebi EX, and this card is going to be nuts. Before we talk about Celebi, I think we got to jump over to the Superior. So the Superior has its Jungle Totem ability, which says that each grass energy attached to your grass Pokemon provides 2 grass energy, and it does not stack. So you can't put 2 Superior in play and get 4 energy out of every 1 grass energy you have. This is a very common effect in the real TCG. I say very common. It's been printed a few times, so we've seen Jungle Totem before. It used to be on a Venusaur back in... Oh my gosh, I'm old. This was actually back in like 2017 or something, so I guess not that recent. This was kind of a long time ago. But either way, Jungle Totem is going to be very powerful. I don't think that any current grass types necessarily get better from Superior. Like, Venusaur players, I'm sorry, pack it up. I don't think you're getting a Superior and a Venusaur out. And ideally, you'd probably want 2 Venusaur in order to take full advantage of this ability. I just don't see it happening. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that the better partner for Superior is this Celebi EX. So 130 HP, basic EX. It has the powerful Bloom attack. 50 damage. You flip a coin for each energy attached to this Pokemon. The attack does 50 damage for each heads. Dude, if you have just 3 grass energy attached to this and a Superior powered up, you're flipping 6 coins. You have the potential to do 300 damage. Probably not going to happen, but when you start to average things out, your Celebi is going to be doing most likely somewhere between 100 and 200 damage every single turn just for 3 energy attachments. Like, that is insane. This can absolutely nuke anything in front of it if you get lucky on the coin flips. This ramps so quickly because of Superior that you don't even really have to high roll with this deck. Like, you're just going to be doing consistently enough every single turn with the Celebi. Not hard to power up at all. I think that this card is going to be insane. This is going to be a serious meta threat going forward. You could power up 2 Celebi EX like no problem. Even if you just attach 2 energy to the first one and then start working on a big one in the back to come in swinging at the end of the game and just knock out whatever is in front of it, almost guaranteed. I think that this card is nuts. I love playing decks like this. We've seen cards with this Celebi's attack as well in the real TCG. Usually it's always on grass types. It just seems to be a theme with grass types. Attach a bunch of energy to them and flip coins to see how much damage you do. So I'm very, very excited about this Celebi. It's probably going to be the first deck I build, is Superior Celebi. I love it. I think it's very, very good. The Superior also, because when I saw this Delmise, I said, this Delmise is there's no way it's good. I mean, how are you ever going to get 4 energy on a Delmise before it gets knocked out? Or you're just wasting so many attachments on it just to do 70 extra damage. But with that Superior, now you can attach to it twice and you're doing 90 damage with a basic. So this can be very, very strong. 100 HP is pretty good number as well. I like this Delmise now that I've seen Superior. I think Delmise, Superior, Celebi, it's going to be a great deck going forward. Very, very excited to see Grass type get some love in this set. Now we need to talk about the Ponyta and the Rapidash that we got. So this Ponyta has an attack that I think is just a better version. Let's see if I can look at related cards. I can. So the normal Ponyta does 20 damage for 1 energy. That's pretty okay. I'm not sure how relevant the math is on that usually. I think that the potential to do 40 damage in 1 turn at the downside of doing 10 damage less is pretty good. I think this Ponyta is most likely just a strict upgrade from the other one. Like, the potential to do 40 damage is nuts. And then we have this Rapidash. So this Rapidash is interesting because it does take 1 more energy. And in Blaine's decks, those energy attachments are important. But, again, you have the chance to do 100 damage with it. Usually your Rapidash isn't getting knocked out by most things. I think Rapidash has a better chance to survive a hit than, you know, the Ninetales does with all the Pikachus that usually run around. So, not totally convinced that this is a straight upgrade over it. We'll have to play more and see how it feels having to attach 2 energy to the Rapidash before we can start powering up our Vulpix on the bench. But again, the potential to do 100 damage, plus you throw Blaine's in there and you're doing 130 damage if you flip heads, seems pretty good to me. It's definitely interesting. Then we have the Magmar. We talked about the Magmar in my other set reviews. Seems like it'll be pretty decent in Blaine's, but again, this is something you got to attach 2 energy to. And then it can only attack once and that energy is gone. So might be a little bit too energy dependent to truly be good. Now we have the Volcarona. Volcarona I don't think is amazing, but I think it's an interesting card. So its Volcanic Ash lets you discard 2 fire energy from this Pokemon, and it does 80 damage to one of your opponent's Pokemon. Seems like it's just a little bit too much to set up for only 80 damage snipe. This could be something that Fire decks would play as a way to end the game instead of focusing on a Sabrina. Like, if your opponent leaves something either damaged on the bench or something small that they haven't quite evolved up, you can use this Volcarona to steal the game. Now, whether or not that is going to be worth the 1-1 or 2-2 deck space that it's going to require to play, I'm not sure. But that option is now there for Fire decks that sometimes, you know, I would think it would fit best in like an Arcanine deck where you might not necessarily be one-shotting some of the other EX attackers, but you can soften them up, and then if they retreat back to the bench, you can use the Volcarona to come in and snipe it. You know, when they have a full bench, it's hard for Sabrina to do exactly what you need Sabrina to do. So, pretty interesting. Lets your opponent's Pokemon not totally be safe on the bench. Not sure how great it's going to be, but it's something to consider for Fire decks moving forward. Then we have the Salazzle. 1 energy, 30 damage. Your opponent's Pokemon is now poisoned. And the Salandit does 50 damage if your opponent's active Pokemon is poisoned. Doesn't seem that great. I'm not sold on it at all. Kind of just a blank card to me. Now, we do have a better Magikarp. So let's look at what the normal Magikarp just does 10 damage. But this one allows you to attach to the Magikarp and then switch it out, which seems pretty good to me. Because if you start Magikarp, you're probably not happy. You're going to have to attach to it and then burn the energy to retreat. But now you can just use Leap Out and get the Magikarp out of the active spot while preserving that energy. And that's going to be very important because we have like one of the most insane cards I feel like I've ever seen. This Gyarados EX is crazy. 180 HP for 4 water energy. Have no fear, we have Misty. I'm sure Misty will smooth things over. I mean, we can get 3 energy on an Articuno. I'm sure we can get 4 energy on 180 HP EX. It does 140 damage, and the effect is that it will discard a random energy from anywhere on the board. It can either be your energy or your opponent's. Doesn't matter. The game's just going to choose at random and do that. But 140 damage on a Stage 1 EX with 180 HP. Dude, you use the Giovanni, you're one-shotting Mewtwo. If you don't use the Giovanni, you're one-shotting Arcanine, Mew EX, Pikachu EX, Articuno EX, Starmie EX. Like, almost everything else in the game that is not a Stage 2 EX, you're going to one-shot. So this seems like a very, very nutty card. I feel like now, I could see a deck where you play Articuno EX, the Vaporeon to switch around your energy, and then the Gyarados, use the Gyarados as the late game attacker. 180 HP, man, it's just so ridiculously big. Like, think about how hard it is for Charizard to get one shot. And your opponent can't even Mew this to one shot it back. Like, this card is going to be nuts. This is probably going to be the second deck I build, because Gyarados just looks insane. Then we have that Vaporeon I talked about. Lets you move water energy around from your bench Pokemon to your active water Pokemon. Pretty good. We have the Finneon, another blank card. Dreadnought, also another blank card, not really worth talking about. This Raichu is potentially interesting. So its Giga Shock attack does 60 damage, and it also does 20 damage to each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. Not sold on it being, like, game-breaking or even finding a place into Pikachu EX decks, but it is just another thing for Lightning-type decks to consider. Yeah, not 100% sold on it, but 20 damage to the bench is gonna be pretty impactful. It's gonna soften up a lot of Pokemon. Maybe Pikachus want to run a 2-2 Raichu now, with one of the 140 HP, or 100, the Raichu that does 140 damage, and this one, just something to give it more toolboxy feel, more potential options as the game goes on. Not entirely sure, but it's a very cool attack either way. We get a better Electabuzz. It's a 40 damage snipe. Could be decent. Zebstrika's already good, but Zebstrika has the benefit of only being 1 energy, which in Pikachu, that can sometimes make the difference. So, it's an okay card. Galvantula. So, Galvantula is just electric type Arbok. It does 10 more damage, but lightning type is just okay weakness-wise. Arbok really benefits from the fact that it's a dark type and it could prey on Mewtwo super, super well. Galvantula is not going to be hitting much things for relevant weakness. It'll hit the water decks and, like, Moltres, but I don't think you're going to see, like, a full Galvantula style deck like we have a full Arbok style deck. Then we have the Dedenne. We've talked about him. Just another option for Pikachu to consider. 1 energy with the potential to paralyze your opponent. Pretty good. The Mew EX. I'll take a second. We've talked about him in length, but we all know what Mew EX does at this point. Genome hacking. It's going to change the game. It's going to go into so many different decks. Very, very cool attack. I love that we now have a way to deal with a Charizard that's fully powered up and a Mewtwo that's fully powered up. Very good. Very, very good. Probably the best card in the set still. We have Beheeyem. 90 HP, Psychic type attacker. Its Mind Jack attack does 20 more damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. It can do up to 70 damage. It's just okay. It's nothing spectacular, but 70 damage for 1 energy is never that bad. Just don't know what deck would even want to put it in there, what deck necessarily has the space for it. I think there's other cards that are better than it. We do have Florges as another Stage 2 that we get. Only 120 HP. But its Bloom Shine attack does 80 damage for 2 Psychic and heals 20 damage from each of your Pokemon. Kind of another blank card. I'm not sold on it. I don't think it means anything. Don't expect to see it to get any play. Slurpuff, another blank card. So we have this new Mankey. Not totally sold on it. I think the other Mankey is just better because this one doesn't damage itself. It does 50 damage on a coin flip. That can be very, very impactful, but again, it's on a coin flip and you're not damaging yourself to power up that Primeape. And instead we get this Primeape, which does 50 damage for 1 energy. It's okay. It's okay. I mean, 50 damage early game, 1 energy is pretty solid, but I feel like you would still prefer to play the other Primeape for that potential 100 damage and just kind of start doing 100 damage on your second or third turn, however the coin flip goes for you, and whatever lets you get the Primeape set up. Yeah, I think it's okay. It's nothing too fantastic, but something for fighting decks to think about. maybe some fighting decks are going to want that early aggression, and they're going to also want their energy attached elsewhere. We'll have to see how the decks end up shaking out. We do have a new Golem, and this Golem's kind of crazy, right? Because it has 160 HP, and when you attack with Guard Press, it does 120 damage, and it makes it so Golem takes 30 damage less from your opponent's attacks. That means that, like, let's say Golem's attacking into a Pikachu EX. Pikachu's only going to be doing 60 damage max. Golem's going to be able to live 2 attacks from that, maybe 3 if you get 2 potions down. Mewtwo EX is not going to be able to one-shot it. Charizard EX still will. Articuno's only going to do 50 damage per attack. This thing's kind of crazy. I think if you can actually manage to get this Golem set up, it's going to be a very, very hard wall to get through. And when your opponent does finally get through it, they're only going to get 1 prize. So this Golem is going to stay in the active spot for quite a while it just keeps guard pressing over and over, doing massive damage. 120 is pretty big. And then, of course, we have the Brock to power it up. So I like this Golem. I'm definitely going to be trying this Golem out. I think he's pretty decent. We have the Aerodactyl. We talked about the Aerodactyl before. I don't really need to go over it again. I feel like all of you know what it does. Same with the Marshadow. We do have this Stone Journer. So Stone Journer is kind of nice because it's just a basic, and it will give you a guaranteed 90 damage at some point in the game. It takes 3 fighting energy, which is a little bit rough for fighting decks. They're usually pretty weak attackers, usually only take 2 energy. That's really usually all the time you have to set up your attackers when you're playing fighting, because the games kind of move so quick. So not sure that you're ever going to be able to truly pull it off. But maybe in some deck it will have its function. You know, 90 damage guaranteed on a basic is pretty strong. So I like the Stone Journer card. I'm happy to see it. This is huge. Okay, Coughing has the division attack, puts a random Coughing from your deck onto your bench. That's just a straight upgrade from the Coughing we have. The Coughing we have now does what? I'm gonna guess 10 damage. It does 20 damage. Okay. Ooh. But the fact that you'd be able to get a second Coughing out, number 1, you're thinning your deck of the second Coughing. Number 2, you can now start using Koga with no issue. You can just Koga loop your Weezings because you got that Coughing out, that second Coughing out early. Just a very, very good card. Every time I played a Weezing deck that played Koga, my biggest problem that I'd run into is the fact that I never had second Coughing on the bench, or didn't get second Coughing in time to then use Koga, bring up the Weezing, and stick the Coughing in the active spot and evolve that Weezing, evolve it into Weezing. So I really like this card. I think I would play it over the Coughing that we have currently, because it's just so strong. You're thinning a card and you're guarantee setting yourself up for Koga plays. So very, very cool. We do have this new Weezing. I don't think it's any better than the Weezing we have. Smokescreen could, in theory, buy you a turn, which is cool. But other than that, you're going to need to attach to it twice. And usually Weezing just likes to wall. Smokescreen could potentially make you wall a little bit better, but you might just want the guaranteed damage plus poison of the Weezing we currently have. We'll have to see. I'm leaning towards current Weezing. Maybe this one ends up being a little bit better with that Smokescreen attack, but we'll have to see. We got Liepard. Not really moved by this card. It does what Golbat does, but it requires dark energy and has 20 more HP. Maybe in some sort of dark deck it'll be fine if they want early game aggression and Golbat's just not quite cutting it, but I don't think that 90 damage is enough of a HP increase that is going to be that relevant into any matchup. We do have the Scolipede. So Scolipede is cool. For just 2 energy, it has the Venoshock attack, and it does 70 damage plus 50 more if your opponent's Pokemon is poison. So it would do 138 damage if your opponent's active Pokemon is poison. I feel like you could just play this with the Weezing deck and have a pretty decent stage 2 attacker in there. Yeah, I like the card. I think it's going to be fun to mess around with. Don't think it's immediately going to be like A tier or S tier or game breaking in any way, but I always appreciate getting some new evolved cards like stage 2s or stage 1s that look like they're going to be fun decks. So pretty cool to see that Scolipede. Draudigon, sadly, our only dragon type card, and it is bad. I'm not even going to go over it. It's not a good card. We have the Pidgeot EX, 170 HP, 1 retreat cost, Scattering Cyclone, 3 colorless, does 80 damage plus 20 more damage for each of your opponent's bench Pokemon. So this card can cap out at 140 damage. For a colorless attacker, that seems pretty decent to me. I feel like you could maybe even just play a full Pidgeot deck with a 2-1 split, 2 Pidgeot EX, 1 of the normal Pidgeot, so you can hopefully utilize that ability at some point in the game. It's always tough to get 2 Stage 2 set up though, so not really sure how well that's going to work. But it just seems like an okay attacker. Pidgeot EXs, I feel like most Pidgeots are nothing ever special, especially with their attacks. So it has the potential to do 140 damage, like I said. It will definitely be one-shotting some of the smaller EXs. But whether or not you could build a whole deck around Pidgeot, not totally sure yet. Obviously, we're going to have to do some testing and see how good it feels. We got the Tauros. We've talked about the Tauros. 120 damage if your opponent's active Pokemon is an EX. Just solid. Just very, very solid. It's a colorless attacker. It can be put into any deck that might want that option in it. So I like the Tauros a lot. It's pretty good. What else? We got a good Eevee. A good Eevee. We have a lot of Eevees, I believe. Yeah, we have 3 other Eevees. They all do the same thing. They do 20 damage for 1 energy. But this one, if you're feeling a little, feeling a little rude, a little ridiculous, you can play this Eevee and potentially one-shot whatever's in the active spot. I already know we're going to see videos of people getting 50 heads on their Eevee and doing 1,000 damage. It's going to be funny to see. Super volatile attack, but it has the potential to just pop off and go completely nuts. We do have this Chatout, and I think that this Chatout's very cool because its Mimic attack will shuffle your hand to your deck, and you'll draw a card for each card in your opponent's hand. I feel like this card could do really, really well in Stage 2 decks that might want a little bit of help, because, I mean, if you're looking for your Stage 1s, and you don't have your Stage 1, and your opponent is leaving their hand size at 3, 4, more, whatever, you're going to be able to Mimic and probably get 2 turns out of this Chatot and just completely refresh your hand, give you a better shot at seeing those Stage 1s or Stage 2s that you need to evolve into. So I think that Chatot is a unique card that could see some play in some decks. Again, nothing game-breaking, but it's here as a idea while we're deck building, and that is something I'm always happy to see. We get another Old Amber card to go with our Aerodactyl. Same as the last one, nothing special. We have the Pokemon Flute, which I have not discussed on this channel yet, but we did see it get leaked earlier in the weekend. Pokemon Flute puts a basic Pokemon from your opponent's discard pile onto their bench. So, my first thought is maybe you can play this with like a Victory Bell deck and use this Pokemon Flute to, after knocking out whatever basic you brought up, just use the Pokemon Flute, put it right back on the bench, and gust it up again. So that seems like something that's interesting. Other than that, there is the potential to use this card to bench lock your opponent and stop them from benching something they want. If you're against a big Stage 2 deck that is just leaving a Stage 2 in the active with nothing on the bench, you might be able to rope in a Pokemon Flute plus a Sabrina to put something weak on the bench. Sabrina, take that last prize card you need. With our decks only being 20 cards, though, it seems like it's going to be hard to pick this Pokemon Flute over just any of the other trainer cards, unless your deck is specifically tailored around this and it's very gust heavy. Think like Arbok Pidgeot or Victory Bell plus whatever else Victory Bell is paired with, or maybe even like Greninja decks to try to put a basic 60 HP Pokemon on the bench and snipe it over a few turns. I don't know. It seems very, very difficult to pull off that play when you want to. And of course, your opponent could always just get around it by leaving their bench full the entire game. So, not a game-breaking card by any means, but potentially strong. Potentially strong. Now we have to talk about what I think is the most ridiculous card I've seen them print. I don't know why they printed this. We know that Mewtwo EX is already the strongest card in the deck, and Mewtwo is the only deck, besides Mew EX if you're going to play some sort of standalone Mew EX deck, whatever. Mewtwo EX is really the only big deck that gets a straight buff to it, and no other deck can take advantage of. So this card says, look at the top card of your deck. If that card is a Psychic Pokemon, put it into your hand. If it is not a Psychic Pokemon, put it on the bottom of your deck. So we will now have the potential as Mewtwo to look at 2 additional cards per game that might be that Curlia or the Gardevoir you need, or even if it's just another Mewtwo EX, and you now fish that out of the deck, and it's not something you're going to draw on the next turn. Seems like it's going to be pretty strong. Maybe it's balanced because it's only looking at the top card, and if you saw a Research there or Sabrina and then had to put that on the bottom of your deck, you'd feel pretty bad about it. But just the fact that this could potentially make Mewtwo get into a Gardevoir even faster than it normally does, I'm scared of this card. I'm definitely scared of this card. It is only looking at the very top card of your deck, but I'm just a little bit weary on it. I'm a little bit weary. I'm hoping that it doesn't send Mewtwo over the edge and let it continue to dominate, but we'll just have to see how it ends up shaking out in practice. This is the only supporter we didn't have revealed, and it's very unique. So it's Budding Expeditioner, and it lets you put the Mew EX you have in your active spot into your hand. The only real utility I can think of for this is to bounce Mew EXs around. Maybe if you were playing a solo Mew EX deck, or like Mew EX is your main attacker. Because I don't think that any decks that are teching the Mew EX in are going to want to play this card. It's one more card that you have to include in that tech spot. It would be very powerful depending on the matchup. I mean, they attack into your Mew EX, then you just pick it up, deny them the prize card. Sure, that's always good, but you lose all of your energy attachments to it. And again, it's just another deck spot you have to account for. And we only have 20 cards in our deck, so deck space is usually very, very thin. And making the 1-card Mew EX tech into a 2-card just for the potential, when you can honestly probably just switch out the Mew EX and it won't really be a problem. The only way I can see this card really getting any play is, again, if we're in some sort of Mew EX central deck, which I don't even know if it could work. I mean, maybe instead of Mewtwo EX, we just play Mew EX with a Gardevoir, and then we use Budding Expeditioner to bounce our Mews around and keep it from ever getting knocked out unless it's going to get one shot. So it's cool. I like the idea of playing a Mew EX deck that can recycle them over and over and eat some hits that way. So it's something. I wish we would have had a supporter that was more impactful for every single deck, but it is what it is. We do have the blue. We already talked about blue. And then we have the leaf. And that is about it for our Mythical Island set. So let me know what you guys think. Let me know what decks you think are now going to be top of the meta. The 2 I'm looking at the most right now are the Celebi and the Gyarados decks. I think those are going to be the strongest cards out of this set by far, besides Mew EX, right? Mew EX is the strongest card, but I'm talking about standalone decks that we're going to be building out of this set. So thank you guys so much for watching. Please be sure to like and subscribe if you enjoyed it. Thank you so much. Have a great day.